Welcome to the Optional Boss Podcast. This is episode 54, and it's still not the Bossies. We might end up foregoing the Bossies this year.
or we might just we ran out of
it's
funding.
the annual ran out of funding. Everyone quit. Oh, yeah, no, it's just time constraint getting people's. But next year it'll be the annual, semi-annual, not semi-annual. Yeah, semi-annual.
So
I don't know.
So should we at least give these people at least like what we think our game of the year was, since we're not going all out with it?
Let's do that. Mini Bossies in 3, 2, 1. Tyler, game of the year for you.
All right,
that you played. Didn't necessarily have to come out in 2024.
The most prestigious game that I give the prestigious award to for 2024. For me, it's actually, so it was a pretty good year. There was some pretty heavy hitters, like, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which you would think would be up there. But actually, for me, my game of the year for 2024 is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance.
Which is kind of hilarious when you think about it, because that's like not a remake by any means. It's a addition. Atlas does that.
It's an expanded re-release, but just because of how much better it made the game, it stuck with me. So, and I had a blast while I was doing it. So that wins my 2024 Bossy for Game of the Year. There you go, folks. Josh, how about yourself?
You know what? Honestly, I'm not even sure, because I played some really good games last year. A lot of beefy games, actually. So obviously we had Baldur's Gate 3. We had Silent Hill 2 Remake. And we had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And between the three of them, it's just all fantastic, all great times. I'm gonna say Silent Hill 2 Remake.
There you go, folks.
And
months of preparation. Here we
yes.
are.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I had a feeling that was probably gonna be it for you.
Well, it's a toss up between Baldur's Gate and Silent Hill 2 Remake. Silent Hill 2 Remake because it's like, I'm a Silent Hill fan, but I just got into it a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And started with 1, did 2 on the PlayStation 2, then I did the Enhanced Edition. I've played it a few times. To see it revitalized fairly faithfully, I have gripes with it, absolutely. But no, it was really well done. And Rebirth was fantastic, but I know there's a point that is like, okay, I want it to kind of end. There's a lot of meat here, and I am full.
I feel like for both of us, like, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would be like our honorable mention runner-up game of the year, because, like, if you look at it objectively, it is the best game I played last year, hands down.
Yes,
but it's not the one that was my personal favorite, and that's okay. But it was great.
Oh, absolutely. It was a fantastic time. I mean, it's very close to 3 games I mentioned. Like, they could change tomorrow. That's how close they are.
Yep. No, it was a good year for gaming overall.
Because, like, Silent Hill 2 Remake and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth both had me at numerous points, like, giddy. Like, oh, this is that part. And it's like, revitalizing a childhood memory.
So,
except Silent Hill 2, not so much. But it still got me giddy. It's like, oh, I know this from the original, and just to see it in a new light, it's just, I don't want to say mind-blowing, but mind-blowing.
So here's a question then. I don't know if you still have have a list of stuff from last year, but, given that we are the Optional Boss podcast, do you have a Mindy of the year?
A Mindy of the year?
A Mindy of the year.
You know what? I'm trying to think of the indie games I actually played last year. And I didn't make myself a list. And I should have. I don't remember.
Oh, see, mine's easy. I've known since I first played it. Easily Gravity Circuit. That game was fucking incredible. Oh my god. As far as like a Mega Man goes, I can't wait to play it again at some point. It's so good at capturing like that fast, frantic energy of like the Mega Man Zero games, but also still being original. Great soundtrack, great visuals. Oh, go play Gravity Circuit if you like Mega Man, people. It's so fucking good.
I don't know it's not really a mini indie, but Baldur's Gate 3 is technically an indie.
Not Road. See, I was looking at Liza P. It was like, I can't do that again. Yeah, but
but speaking of indies, I finally got my proper copy of Outer Wilds for PS5, so that might be a replay through. Actually,
that took a while.
Now, granted, it's not mini either, but Stellar Blade.
Yeah,
I forget if that was this year or not, but that was a really good time. I really enjoyed that game.
I feel like that was last year. So
yeah,
but I guess
I don't remember.
No, that all happened so fast. But
a lot of my gaming time went to those 3 games, and it's just like mind.
I was actually just looking over like my list from last year, and my list was quite short. And I'm sure a lot of that just has to do with life in general, but a lot of it is due to the fact that I played so many very long games last year.
Yes,
I don't want as much of that this year. We'll see what happens. But I'm liking, keeping things to the 30 to 40 hour mark at most.
I can't say anything about that because like my current playthrough of Factorio, which started just before the year ticked over, we're in the 200 hour mark.
Oof.
I think it's 220, but you know.
Oh, that is so I guess it's safe to say now that we'll move on to the present. You've been playing Factorio still.
Yes, I have made it to all the planets, actual planets anyways. So I just have 2 more zones to go check out. That's the Edge of the Universe and the Shattered Planet, which is not a planet you can land on. So I'm just kind of in the last push for things, and then I think I'm ready to call it quits, and then I gotta find something else that I want to play. And I feel like I'm going to need something with a bit more action in it.
I've definitely been craving a bit of the action myself lately. The last thing I recall playing was I started Slay the Spire, I believe the last time we were talking.
I think you were just about to, because you just got it.
Yeah, and I have now put down Slay the Spire. It's great.
I told you. I've told you for years. Slay the Spire is fantastic.
It is problematically great, but my dilemma is now that I have essentially beaten it, it wants me to play it hundreds of times before it thinks I beat it. So
now you've played it with each character and beat it with each character, right?
Yes.
Asshole.
Yeah, I burned through that one pretty quick. And like I had a great time. I would happily play more, but I think it demands like basically for those who like know the Souls terminology and you beat it and you get New Game Plus, it wants like New Game Plus 20 for every character. And I'm like, I'm just gonna play something else for now. But it's very much gonna be a game that I'm just like, I don't know what to play. I'll play some Slay the Spire. It's a good time.
You have any idea what you're gonna dive into now?
So, I'm actually currently a little disappointed because I downloaded the Monster Hunter Wilds Beta 2. I figured, we'll have another crack at that. And then in the time the beta's been open, the PlayStation Network was experiencing an outage. So every time I go to play it, no. But just maybe about an hour before we hopped on here, I did finally get access to it. And I don't know why, but I think it's really boring. And that's so unfortunate. Like, I really like Monster Hunter, but something about them making it like fully open world. Well, open zone. I don't know what you would call it anymore.
Open zone.
Much more expansive anyway. And
now, you never checked out Monster Hunter World, right?
I didn't. And I feel like if I did and I liked World, I would like this a lot more. Because it seems this is more a sequel to World than it is like a new Monster Hunter game that I'm used to. Which I understand. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I will say a big thing with like the demo of these games compared to the full game. The demo is just like go fight monsters, which don't get me wrong, there's kind of the point of the game. But I find you don't start having fun until it's like you're getting materials and working towards crafting new armor and weapons and also like, bringing weapons of certain attributes to certain hunts. It loses all that aspect. So you're just
refining your loadout.
Yeah, and without that kind of like goal-oriented kind of grind, it's just bullying lizards. And don't get me wrong, it's fun to bully lizards, but I want to do it with purpose.
That's how gaming really lifted off. You played as Mario and you bullied a fucking lizard.
Yep. So I don't know. I'm
Nothing's changed in these past 40 years.
No, it has been 40 years for Mario. Oh my god.
Something like that, yeah.
I think this is the 40th anniversary this year. So, um, so yeah, I don't know. I'll play it a little bit more, but I'm not crazy about it. But I know very soon is also the open beta for Elden Ring and Night Rain. So
open beta or closed beta?
I think it's a closed beta now that you mentioned. I guess because it did require like an invitation and
yeah,
like
so that would be
applying.
closed beta.
So there's that. I'm looking forward to checking that out. So yeah, just a couple like temporary experiences. Other than that, I haven't really thought of anything progression wise. What about you? What you gonna do once you're done Factorio?
Honestly, I've been hemming and hawing. I got a few games that have started piling up, and I really need to get to. But I honestly think I'm going to take a crack at the Tomb Raider 2 in the remastered collection.
Nice.
I did Tomb Raider 1 not that long ago, and maybe just keep that momentum.
Yep. Just pick away at the series. I have a strong itch for Final Fantasy again, which isn't good because I don't want to play more turn-based RPGs. And if I play a turn-based RPG, I should play Sea of Stars.
You really should. Your name's in it, and
I know. I paid good money to get my name in it. I should play the fucking game. So yeah, I don't know, but I also want to play Mega Man. I always want to play Mega Man.
That's fair. I haven't played Mega Man in a while. I think the last one I did was X3.
That's funny enough.
Oh no! I did 7. I did Mega Man 7.
Right, I remember because you were the next one you have up is good but frustrating and
yes,
has some of the most hilariously bad voice acting ever.
And it might be one that I am going to end up using the rewind feature because those snowboarding rail sliding sections seem tedious.
Well, let me tell you firsthand that they're incredibly tedious. And
I'm assuming this has a rewind function anyways. I'm kind of hoping it does just for that.
I don't know if they had it for the later games. I know they had it for the NES ones, but so the first time I did those rail sections, I played Mega Man 8 on the GameCube Mega Man collection, and let me tell you, anything Mega Man, let alone stuff with that much precision with a GameCube controller, sucks.
Well, yeah, because I feel like you'd want to use the D-pad for it, and no.
Not even the D-pad, just the button placement as well, like the giant A and little B.
Yeah,
and like it's not the best controller.
It's not made for that kind.
No. But speaking of playing games in weird ways, have we even said what today's topic is?
We have not. So, if you read the title of this episode, you'd already know. But we're going to talk about weird controls, controllers, and game, I guess, accessories. And in a sense, in a dumbed down, we aren't going full blown accessories, but
just some unconventional ways to play games. You know, not your standard D-pad and buttons controller. We want to talk about some weird shit like the Power Glove.
Some of them have been absolutely fantastic and a phenomenon. Others have been, it's fun to joke about.
I'd say it's like a 20/80 split.
Yeah, probably something like that. So with that said, let's get to it. So video games have obviously been around for a long time, and they've had so many different kind of controls, control schemes, ways to play. I mean, the Wii was essentially just, this is a whole new way to play video games. This is a revolution. That was its code name, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Because Dolphin was GameCube.
Yep.
Revolution was the Wii.
Switch was the NX.
Yeah. What was the Wii U?
What was the Wii U?
That wasn't Dolphin.
No.
Dolphin U.
No, I don't actually remember what the code name was for the Wii U.
I forget if we mentioned on any of the other episodes, but I mean Switch 2. Switch 2, we're going to find out more come April.
Yep.
And based on aside from the fact that it's the only stuff we kind of got on it was the Joy-Cons come with a drift, as it showed that it could be used like a mouse.
You know, it's going to be a huge missed opportunity. And also, something that fits very well into this topic is if they don't put Mario Paint on the SNES Online service on the Switch 2.
Like, if the Joy-Cons work like a mouse, yeah, that's absolutely a missed opportunity.
Yeah. But going back to that, hey, you remember how the Super Nintendo had a fucking mouse?
Yep.
There's actually
So there's a few consoles, because the PlayStation had a mouse too.
PlayStation had a mouse.
Did Sega have one?
I want to say like the Dreamcast or the Saturn had a mouse. I can't remember, but I feel like I've seen something where someone was playing Doom with a mouse and half of a controller.
So Dreamcast did have a mouse. I have to look this up now because, again, and I know people have been upset about this with us. We don't know much on the Sega universe. We'd like to, but it's just not. We both grew up as Nintendo kids. This is our kind of bread and butter, and PlayStation, right? So
I know
Sega was just
random things about it, but not from a nostalgia standpoint.
So there was a mouse for the Mega Drive.
Yeah. But what for?
Oh, and the Sega Saturn.
I think maybe games like Populous. I don't know if know if the Sega had Populous, but things like that. There were a couple strategy games on the Genesis. I'm sure there's more than a couple, but we are just flexing our lack of knowledge right off the hop.
Body Count, Cannon Fodder, Fun and Games.
Yo, Cannon Fodder's so good.
Yeah, so that was compatible with the mouse for the Mega Drive.
You know what?
Marble
that game
Madness.
Would be so much better with a mouse. Marble Madness.
Richard Scarry's Busy Town.
Oh, Busy Town. Did you ever...
Shin Megami Tensei on the Mega CD. Could use it.
I could never experience that, but that's so cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever use Mario Paint and the mouse?
Oh, absolutely. So there's two things I did mostly in it. Is never paint, and I did the fly swatter thing. Yeah. And the music thing. I used to love making the music stuff. It sounded like garbage every single time, but and then the fly swatter game, for those who don't know, is just like, I don't know. You controlled the little a fly swatter with the mouse, and you smacked flies, and then a queen came out.
That's all there was to it, and yet it was surprisingly memorable.
Yeah.
So, would you say what do you think is your first weird gaming peripheral? I would imagine for at least most our age, it's probably the NES Zapper.
Yeah, Zapper. Zapper would definitely be it. I was going to say mouse, but no, the Zapper would definitely be it.
Light guns were kind of a big deal back in the day.
Oh, absolutely, because, I mean, it replicated something that you only saw in arcades, right?
Yep.
And, I mean, Duck Hunt was the only game I ever played it with. Now, speaking of light guns, there was also the bazooka for Super Nintendo.
The Super Scope. Ooh.
Yes.
Okay. So most of the games for the Super Scope are just not good, but Battle Clash, so good. Oh my god, I played that so much.
So we had a Kmart in town, and they were selling this really cheap bundle. It had a light gun, not the SNES Super Scope, but a light gun for the Super Nintendo, and it came packaged with a copy of Yoshi's Safari.
Oh, neat.
Growing up, I loved Yoshi's Safari. The light guns were garbage. They were absolute shit. And I think we broke 4 within an hour of using it.
Wow.
And, we were kids, but I don't think we were that rough with it. They just stopped responding.
Oh, no.
I did eventually beat it with one of those, and me and my brother always wanted Yoshi Safari and the Super Scope because we used to rent it all the time. But it was a little more pricey because you're renting a peripheral with the game.
Yeah.
So didn't get to rent it that often, but used to play that. Same with my mom. My mom used to play it with us a lot too. So gaming memories, if
No,
you will.
the Super Scope was really cool. I kind of wish I still had one today, but
So do I, and I almost picked one up because I think it was around $100 Canadian that I could have picked up at one of the stores.
I think it's how
And the
like
only thing is they don't work with LED or LCD screens.
no,
You need a
and you
CRT.
also
So
you need the adapter if it comes with it as well, and you also need games that are compatible. And it's one of those things where like I remember seeing Super Scopes in bins of toys for like $6.
yeah.
So I understand that like retro gaming's gotten expensive, but spending that much money on a Super Scope for like one game, I have such a hard time justifying.
Well, okay, I'm in the crowd that because I can't actually buy a lot of these games, I don't mind getting repros depending on the game.
Yep.
But if like something like Earthbound, I'm never going to own an actual copy. I'm not spitting at that kind of money.
No.
Um, genuinely or generally, I try and limit myself to about $100. I don't go more for a single game, retro game. Just because a lot of it comes down to scalping and just principle. Like if the developer was getting it, sure, absolutely.
Yep.
Otherwise, I don't mind getting a repro or a bootleg, if you will.
Yep. Yep. I am
So
all for it.
buying a peripheral for $100 and then buying the game for another $40, I think at the time it was 50 maybe.
Yep.
Just to play Yoshi Safari again, but not actually be able to because I don't have a CRT.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
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 I mean, my games sit on my shelf, don't get me wrong, but they can be played.
Yes.
So,
Yes, absolutely. But what about you? Are you gonna go with the Zapper as your first like kind of gaming peripheral?
see, if we're talking about like peripherals in the sense of like things that play things differently,
And we're
yeah,
talking in home
yeah,
because like the arcades always had like a bunch of different wacky ways of controlling a character, like whether it's a foot pedal to duck for cover, or light guns and all that kind of stuff, right? Or steering wheel and gas pedals and all that kind of stuff, or like Cruising
so
USA or things like that, right?
weirdly enough, actually, it wouldn't have even technically been like an accessory for a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo, but if you know the company VTech, and I think VTech is the company that would go on to make stuff like leapfrogs and shit.
Okay.
Uh,
Yep.
I used to have as a kid, it hooked up to the TV, and it was basically like a primitive style drawing tablet. Um,
Okay.
and it had like the
Yep.
pen that was connected to the wire and stuff. So that would be like my first weird pseudo gaming peripheral, right? It was mostly just MS Paint on the TV, but all the same, it felt like a video game at the
It was
very
different. It
least.
wasn't on a computer. It was on the TV, so it's different.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say probably the Zapper if we're talking about like something for gaming. If we're talking accessories, mind you, it would be souping up my Game Boy with a worm light and a magnifying glass.
Oh yeah, I never used a magnifying glass, but I definitely used a worm light.
I
Just
I had
it
it.
looked like one of those silly straws, just coiled right up.
Yep. Yep. But the thing with the magnifying glass is like, yeah, it did make it bigger, but it didn't make it easier to see. It was just giving this weird fisheye effect. And
Yeah.
like, oh, it the things that we tried to improve with gaming back in the day.
Well, at the time we didn't know better either, right? Like now it's easy enough to be like that was horrible. But at the
It was
time it's like we were just stupid little kids. We still enjoyed every single minute of it,
it was a
whether we were
makeshift
fighting with
innovation.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the worm lights weren't bad. Not
The worm
great.
lights were nice. A little bit of light on the go never hurt. But
Yes. As long as you had extra batteries.
yeah. Yeah.
It's nothing like the what do they call it? The mega pack for the Game Boy. The original Game Boy, the big boy.
Oh, do you
It's
mean
like you
like
put the Game Boy in it and it has a magnifying glass, has extra battery packs,
oh, and the
had
button, the things that
the
increase the
buttons.
size of the buttons? Yeah.
Yeah. And
No.
it like made it like 3 times as size and had a magnifying glass. Oh god. The Ultra
No.
Boy?
Didn't it also have like speakers?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it
like
did.
fold out speakers that you could plug into the headphone jack.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, it's wild that the Game Boy Advance, I think, might have been the SP, didn't have a headphone jack, and Nintendo had their own like proprietary jack for headphones.
Yes, they did.
I don't think anyone had Nintendo headphones.
No, I don't think I ever met anyone that had them. I don't even recall seeing them, to be honest.
No, no. So I feel like this was something that, at least when we were younger, was a lot more common in PC gaming, but started to kind of branch out a bit once around like the PS1, more in the PS2 era, is like full blown like steering wheel and gas pedal setups for like
Yep.
racing games.
Yep.
And I mean they still come out to this day. It's hilarious how like incredibly elaborate they get.
Oh,
Um
some get absolutely ridiculous. Like I've used to work in computer repairs, and like we had to fix some simulations, and
yep.
they're hobby simulations. So you see some of the stuff like out in the wild. But like there's been like airplane simulation setups with controllers that would move the seat and everything, so it would actually rock the seat if you're veering left in the plane.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was like really elaborate. Like these people spent a couple tens of thousands of dollars on some of these setups, and they were just extravagant.
Yep.
It's not something I could see myself putting any kind of money into, but for that kind of hobby, like these guys actually take proper flights from like Canada to Tokyo and stuff, right? So
I can't remember what the game is called, but I think it's for like Xbox 360. Like a tank game or a mech game that has like a full blown like tank station as a controller for it. Um like it looks stressful.
oh
And
yeah.
I think the gameplay itself is like you're just in this tiny steel compartment. You have like this little slit that you can look through. Like it seems well, I mean, you know what? Simulation has its appeal. That's for sure.
Sure.
On a much more charming note of that, have you ever seen? I feel like this has come out for a couple different consoles, but how in Japan it seems to be there's a fairly common market for subway operating games
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like the train
I've
controller
the
controls.
train conductor, train simulator, subway controller and stuff. Yep.
Yep.
And they were around for like the PS1 as well.
Yep.
Like that there's a full conductor station for a train on the PS1.
That's so
I forget
cool.
what it's called, but yeah, it was definitely one of the more wacky things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
I don't know why this just made me think of it. There's a guy. It's just it was on a short or a reel or whatever you want to call it, um, where he programmed a recoil machine for first person shooters. So he'd actually get something on his shoulder, pushed against his shoulder. So whenever he shot, he'd get the recoil from the gun.
oh, that's neat.
But then it would also like give you a kick if he got shot and stuff. So it would really hit him.
I want to say it's
Hobbyists are
because
great.
the gaming historian, if I'm not mistaken, he has a video all about light guns, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Does he not show off a couple that like have such ridiculous built-in motorized like snapback that like they
Yeah.
break themselves because they're slamming so hard?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
absolutely.
we want these guns to sound and feel like machine guns,
But they have to be plugged in.
but they have to be plugged in. Yes.
No,
Oh,
controllers themselves. There's so many different wacky things that have been done with them, and some that are just like, again, it could be similar to what we used to do with the Game Boy. It's like, oh, this is great, and then thinking about it afterwards is like, that is stupid.
yep.
Um, like the Atari 2600 stick station. It's essentially just a little spot cut out in a board of wood to stick the controller in. And I don't know if that was to like it was a table for the joystick to sit on your lap so you could sit on the couch and it would like lay on both your legs. So you weren't
Honestly,
like which
like
kind of makes sense, but I mean to sell something just straight up a stick station.
so. I mean, from looking at this, the thing that comes to mind for me as to how I would use it. Like, have you ever held a arcade or not an arcade, kind of an Atari joystick? Like they're not comfortable to hold.
No.
So the way I look at this, which is hilarious for those who can't really visualize, basically take an Atari controller and stick it in a 2x4. This is exactly what
Yeah.
this is. but like if you kind of like leaned your forearms against it and then like use your index finger for the button and then your like the joystick, like I think to give it kind of more like you're leaning on an arcade cabinet.
Yeah, I could kind of see that, and given the Atari era, yes, it makes sense, but it's still funny to look at.
But it is
And
just a controller and a 2x4.
it's just a controller and a 2x4. You could make this no problem at home.
Oh, yeah.
Now I haven't actually held a Atari controller. What I have held that is very similar is a joystick for the Commodore 64, because we used to
Okay.
have 3 or 4 of them. So I imagine it's very similar sense. Now with the joysticks for the Commodore 64, they used to have suction cups on underneath. So you used to just stick it to whatever.
See, that's a little bit better. And I've definitely used like old PC joysticks that had that same kind of setup.
Yeah. So, but it's very similar to the Atari from what I've seen picture wise versus what I can recall back in the early 90s, if you will.
But it is weird when you think of like, controllers that aren't controllers in the conventional sense, but still function like your
Yep.
standard, just what I'm getting at is the Donkey Konga drums.
Yes. And you know what? I love that game.
I've
I was
never
terrible
played
at
it.
it. I never really got to play it because it was noisy, right? Didn't get
Yeah.
to play it that much because it was noisy. Didn't want to interrupt the parents or anything. And we were upstairs, they'd be downstairs in
Yeah.
the living room. So obviously you're going to hear that on the floor, the banging and everything, and the clapping and the
But
So
I think it's really cool that you could just play whatever on the GameCube with the Donkey Konga bongos.
yes, I still have my bongos actually.
Oh, cool.
So they're in a bin somewhere, but I still have them in my
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. There's the Resident Evil chainsaw,
Which is a very highly sought after collector's edition, collector's item now.
yep. Yep.
Which is there's a couple different variations of it too, isn't there?
There is a red one and a
And
yellow one. And I can't
Yeah,
remember which was for what, but like one was for the PlayStation, one was for the GameCube. I think
that makes
the
sense.
yellow one is GameCube.
Yes, yes, it
yeah,
is.
there's that, and then of
Yeah,
course
the red
there
one was
is
for PlayStation.
um, there's the katana for Onimusha, which honestly that's so cool. It's probably the worst controller,
Oh,
but
probably, but it might
like
also be the best.
it
I
it
mean,
just has.
it was made by Hori, right?
Oh
For
yeah,
PlayStation
okay.
2. So
Yeah.
Hori's, from my knowledge, like they're still around. They're one of the rare peripheral creators that are still kicking around. Like Mad Catz is gone. Granted, everyone knows Mad Catz was like your Zellers to your Walmart, right?
I think Mad Catz actually they do still exist, and funny enough about Mad Catz, they make some of the best arcade fight sticks you could buy.
Really?
Yeah, everything else is garbage though.
Their actual controllers are terrible.
But yeah, apparently Mad Catz, if you want something like console version of like Street Fighter V or whatever, you want an arcade stick, they are actually some of the better manufacturers these days. But
That's wacky.
Hori, on the other hand, like they do a lot of like if you ever go to Walmart or GameStop and you see like the Pikachu or Yoshi like wired Switch controllers, those are all made by Hori.
And they also do the 8-bit do controllers too, don't they?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
No, they're
are
all,
notorious for being solid controllers to use.
no, they're quite good. I still prefer obviously first party, but I think I have a Hori wired controller and it does the job.
Yep.
Doesn't feel bad, just doesn't feel as good.
You know what I feel would be uncomfortable to use?
What's that?
The Wu-Tang controller.
The it's just the Wu-Tang symbol with
Yeah.
buttons put
Not
wherever
not
they
much
could.
else to it, but it does not seem comfortable, and it feels like I don't know if you ever do this, but if you're on your couch, you're playing with a controller, and you like set it on your lap and something
Yeah.
as you play, like you're resting on your lap.
Yeah.
This thing got points.
That it
I
does.
feel like that would be uncomfortable.
That it does.
But yeah, it's
Oh.
literally the Wu-Tang layout for the controller. So it's the Wu-Tang symbol.
Now I'm just thinking of I can't remember what it was promoting, but there was I think an Xbox controller with teeth.
Was there?
Let me see if I can. This might be too difficult to find, but yeah, it was not pleasant to look. Oh no, I found it. Never mind. No one wants to see that.
Well, you got to tell us now. You brought it up.
uh,
You got to tell us.
it's an N64 controller made of flesh.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, yeah, and
Wait,
it's got
that was actually a thing that was made?
I don't know. I
Because
hope
I've seen
not.
that image. It looks
I d-
horrifying.
yeah, I don't think it's an official controller. It just looks like someone wrapped a bunch of gum and appendages around the N64 controller and then replaced the D-pad with teeth. Why
Yeah.
does it have teeth? Oh.
That would be terrible to play Mario Party on.
Oh,
You thought you got blisters before.
oh, don't touch teeth.
Actually, come to think of it, I can't really think of that many like peripherals for the N64 aside from like Hey You Pikachu, when you had to shout your head off at Pikachu to do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, there was that.
I mean, just it's the new version of the Pac-Man 2 New Adventures.
Hmm.
You just ain't shooting rocks at him. You're yelling at Pikachu.
I mean, the N64 did have a couple. I mean, it was the introductory of like the memory card and the Rumble Pack.
Yeah, but they
But
were like additions that you plugged into your controllers. They didn't have like
and
wacky controls.
no,
It was wacky to begin with, but
there's the like the Game Boy Pack. Like those don't really like change your gaming experience, right? Now,
no.
I would argue that the Super Game Boy does though, because that is in a sense like, almost a gimmicky way to play your Game Boy games. The Game Boy Player as well.
Yep.
Um so on that note, just weird Game Boy games with like built-in peripherals.
Yes. So
Kirby Tilt and Tumble.
Kirby Tilt and Tumble. That was one of
Yeah.
my favorite games on the. I guess it was Game Boy Color.
It was
Wasn't
Game
it?
Boy Color, yes.
Yeah. I played so much of that. I
It
know
is.
I've beat it, and I want to go back to it now that it's on Switch Online. Just the factory must grow.
I
And
I would argue it is the second hardest Kirby game next to Kirby's Dream Course,
that's fair.
which I don't think those really count, but they count. he gets
I mean,
his stuff.
Kirby's Dream Course was kind of wacky too. Like it was
Yeah.
on a isometric plane, right?
Yeah.
Doing golf. Like controls are a little bit awkward, but it's nothing out of the ordinary, I would say.
Well, not unlike many Kirby games, it wasn't initially a Kirby game, and they were like, "Wait a minute, what
Kirby.
if it was?"
Yeah.
Makes everything better.
But Tilt
But
and
then,
Tumble was fantastic because he actually had to tilt the Game Boy around. Made it a little hard to see sometimes.
yeah,
So maybe seeing it on screen would be great.
yeah.
Again, it's on Switch Online, so I mean, I should really try it out. But
There was also,
then to jump, you kind of had to flick your Game Boy
yep,
up.
yep.
So it was it was like the original motion controls.
It was surprisingly well adapted gyroscope controls, and there was a couple
It
different
was
Game
really
Boy
well
games.
done.
Like, it didn't have the greatest controls, but there's Yoshi's Topsy Turvy, which, like, it's probably the worst Yoshi game. Just no, no, there is a even where Yoshi's Touch and Go is worse.
Yes.
But anywho, yeah, you just play it by tilting the control Game Boy Advance left and right. The best use of that though is WarioWare Twisted, and it has like this thing is like a tumor on your Game Boy Advance. But it innovates on the gyro controls for a handheld so well, and it uses them incredibly. I think one of the coolest things is like one of the hardest mini games in WarioWare Twisted, and it's not like in most WarioWare games like you do it a bunch and it gets faster. They'll just randomly throw this one in when you're like in the middle of a bunch of challenges, and it's hold it still.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it's just a picture of an egg on the screen, and if you move even the slightest bit, the egg just tilts over and crashes, and then like you lose a challenge essentially. Like it's so
Oh,
good.
jeez.
And the only other weird peripheral that I can think that's inherently affects gameplay is how Boktai had a solar sensor built into it.
Yes. I mean, there were some other ones like Pokemon Pinball and I think Perfect Dark. They both had rumble packs, which for Game Boy is really weird.
Yep. Yep.
Take an extra AAA battery.
I mean, if it's probably the most useless thing, but I think I've mentioned before how um the first Robopawn on Game Boy Color is a massive cartridge because it has a built-in infrared sensor
Yep.
and like point your TV remote and like it only does like a handful of things like opens chests. Like it's such a not necessary thing that they put into it anyway.
I mean, just one of those weird, unconventional ways of controlling a game.
Well,
It fits.
there was probably more to it that we just really didn't get because we got one, but there were three versions of the game in Japan, so like there's
Oh,
probably a
jeez.
lot of locked content in that game.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, we mentioned it briefly, but the Power Glove.
Yep. Power glove. Now I've never
That
actually used a power glove. I'm so pissed because the amount of times I have come across it. Like I should pick that up, but and then I don't.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
I've touched one. I've never worn one. It seems terrible.
Oh, it seems absolutely dreadful, but there's something about it that's just so fucking cool.
You've seen the Wizard.
I have seen The Wizard. The Wizard is one of the best advertisements ever.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. Yeah.
The U Force was another wacky one.
Yep.
It was like the original design to the 3DS. It was like two screens. They weren't actually screens, but they were just sensors, and you could either sit it up like a laptop or lay it out like a giant pad. And depending on your motions of your hands above it or in front of it, it would do different commands on or controls for the game. So think of like Wii Boxing, where you had the Wii remote and nunchuck, which is another unconventional way, just the entirety of the Wii catalog essentially. But this was like a little screen in front of you, so you'd punch left and right in front of this tiny screen, and it would detect your movements. Or you lay your
How
palm out and stuff. It was weird.
how do you sell to a kid? Hey, how would you like to play your video games while having as much fun as activating the automatic lights outside the garage?
I mean, that's more or less what it did.
It is fun. It's amazing to think of like how they tried so hard with gimmicky stuff. I can't remember what it was called, but there's this like circle radius for the Sega Genesis that it's a controller and it's just I think like an octagon and you stand in it and you just stomp your feet in different sections of this circle and it's supposed to do the same thing where it just has motion sensors for
Yeah.
your just all your buttons in the D-pad, but like why?
I mean,
Why?
they had I forget what game it was for that they brought out, but the pad that you could dance on, not DDR pad, but the pad for
Oh,
Nintendo.
track and
Like
field.
was it track and field?
I believe track and field used a
I know
pad.
there was like
Yes.
a video of Reggie in Nintendo. He was like on his knees tapping one for something.
Oh, we all miss that man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Then,
there's some
then of course, you have
wacky shit.
DDR, which
DDR,
is
yeah, obviously.
one of the
Let's kind of
breakout
talk
peripherals.
instead of just shitting on some of these. Let's actually talk about some of the good ones. DDR. I mean, not that it was my thing, but I mean, I played it in arcades the odd time. It was never very good, but it was just neat because it was different, right?
Yeah, I think I only ever played DDR once on like the PS2. And yeah, like it wasn't my thing, but it is very neat. I can see how it got popular, but I'm sure for you and I both, Guitar Hero was when peripherals really shined.
Guitar Hero and then Rock Band. I
Yep.
mean, it started with the guitar, then I brought in the guitar, the vocals, the. I mean that's wacky because it's like if you think about the power of sound, if you will, coming all the way from the Konami laser scope, which is where you'd like shout commands into a microphone,
Oh yeah.
and depending on where you looked on the TV screen, it would act like kind of a light gun effect almost. But the trigger
Weird.
was your voice.
Huh.
Um, it looks goofy as hell, but then like into a game where it uses vocals to actually determine how well you're doing.
It is very interesting. I think the first time I ever played anything with like vocal recognition was it was like one of the Sing Stars for PS2.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Not
Yeah,
something I owned, but I mean, that was the time. Everyone gets together, has a couple drinks, and it's just like, hey, let's play the weird karaoke game.
I mean, Guitar Hero and Rock Band were great for that kind of stuff.
Guitar
But
Hero
like,
was definitely like the party game for the longest time. Yeah.
yeah, and then obviously Rock Band comes along, so you can have more than just two people playing.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
have up to four, and like playing the drums. I love playing the drums on Rock Band. Like I absolutely adored it.
Yeah, I was always more partial to the guitar. It was just I wanted to play guitar as well. Never did. Never did. But I actually I do remember like when Guitar Hero first started up and everybody was like, they were all getting into it. I'm like, oh, it's kind of weird, but it doesn't seem like, actually playing a guitar. And I remember hanging out with my buddies. Everyone had passed out for the night, and I was like, all right, finally, I'll give this a shot. I was just dreadful. And the best part about it is like I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it plays out on South Park. Uh,
So
but
I
no.
remember, because me being a giant nerd at a house party full of people who aren't really nerdy, and obviously we had like, I think it was Guitar Hero, could have been Rock Band, whatever had the Dragon Force song, Through Fire and
Uh,
Flames.
that was Guitar Hero 3.
It was Guitar Hero. Okay, so
Yep.
I played that on hard, and everyone's like, "Holy shit, you know what you're doing!" Everyone's drunk, right?
Yep.
So they're like, "Can you do it on expert? Can you do it on expert?" And it's like, I don't think so. So there I was. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's try it. And I'm pissed out of my mind, right? So I play it. I sit down and just start getting sick everywhere.
Oh
But I
no.
beat it.
Oh no. Well, I mean that is an accomplishment on its own.
Oh, I did
Oh,
it.
gross.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah,
story for you.
I do think it's funny how like Guitar Hero, and I do remember we were discussing this effect too when we were playing a lot of theater rhythm. It gives you the melting wall effect.
Oh
Like,
god, the tunnel
oh
vision
yeah,
beyond
yeah,
anything. Yeah.
that could be a little rough.
Yes, and
Uh,
that could have been easily what triggered it. Um,
so I
but
don't.
like going off like Rock Band, and just to kind of stay in the tune of guitars, if you will.
Yeah.
There's also Rocksmith, and not that it
Uh,
was so much peripheral, but it used a real guitar. So you obviously needed a guitar, and when you bought the game, you had to get the adapter for it. So if you bought it on PC, like I did, you had to go find a USB to guitar, or what's it called, 5 1/4
uh,
plug or
that would
whatever.
be your patch cord.
Yeah,
Yes.
your patch cord. So you had to get one of those and then sync it up with the game and whatnot. And then you'd actually be playing, instead of like these colored notes coming at you. It was actually like the frets and tabs that you had to play on the
Oh,
guitar.
oh, that's cool.
So it had to be right pitch and it would read all that kind of stuff. But before, like, you'd every couple of songs you'd want to retune the guitar so it would actually detect the notes properly. So it had
Yep.
an in-game tuner that it would actually a digital tuner essentially. So
Had something similar. I believe it was the Musician app. Um, when I was first learning piano, and it actually kind of had like a Guitar Hero esque thing. But the only problem is like my phone just had a hard time picking up the notes that I was playing.
right.
Um, that's not me covering up for being bad. I'm sure it was bad because I was learning, but at the same time, like there would be times like I would be blatantly playing a note and it just wouldn't pick up any sound. So though in concept was pretty good, it would have been a lot better if it was something like Rocksmith where it was actually directly hooked up to the program.
Yes.
But I can attest that it is actually a surprisingly good teaching tool if you want to kind of like learn an instrument on your own.
Oh, absolutely. Same with Rocksmith. The only thing, if you do play Rocksmith for any kind of guitar stuff, make sure you have standard strings. I had a set of strings, Ernie Ball strings, that were meant for drop tuning. So I didn't do the
Ah,
standard. God, it's been so long since I've even picked up my guitar, to be honest. But they're meant for more your rock, heavy metal type
for
playing.
being tuned
So
in
it's,
drop D.
yeah, drop D.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Fuck me.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
been a while since I've done anything. Like, it's probably been about 8 years since I picked up my guitar. So,
That would do it.
terminology, not my forte.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah, it was really neat. The one thing with Rocksmith though that throws you off a lot because you're playing the song, and yes, the idea is you can take it off the game, plug into an amp, and play the notes that it gave you, and you'd understand the song. It's supposed to be as close as possible as the actual song that you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to like its learning curve was very different because it would start increasing the notes as you go. It's not pick a difficulty or anything.
Yep.
So it would learn your experience. But then at a certain point, it starts taking notes away.
Oh, that's
That
cool.
they go invisible, which is cool. But then if you leave it for a bit and then come back and be like, okay, I don't remember how to play the song, and all the notes are not popping up, shit.
Yeah.
And if you go to a new song that you haven't played before, it's like, oh yeah, you're an expert here. So you don't need the notes for here. And it's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Oh no.
And you don't want to reset your thing because then you're only getting like every one note out of 10. It's like, ah. So it would be nicer if there's actual like difficulty levels that you could follow.
Yeah, it's like starting an RPG after dropping it for several months, except that RPG is called talent development.
Yes. What is a fret?
What is a fret?
So wacky controls and stuff, unconventional controls. I mean, I've already said this a couple times, but the Wii had its whole idea was wacky, unconventional controls. But
motion gimmicks.
yes, it brought some of the most fun games and most annoying games to the world. And I say that because Wii bowling is fantastic. I did enjoy the Wii boxing. Wii golf was wacky as fuck. Baseball, whatever.
So I'm gonna guess your
there's
first
our sports.
experiences. Yeah, that is us doing sports. But I'm guessing Wii Sports was like your first kind of like exposure to the Wii controls and such.
Absolutely. That and the first two games I bought, because I bought two games with my Wii. And that was Splinter Cell Double Agent.
Yeah.
And Red Steel.
Okay, because Red Steel was like, the game to get because shooting and swordplay with motion controls, that seems really good. And if I'm not mistaken, it was not as good as it was supposed to be.
From my understanding, yeah. I mean, there's a big issue with the Wii not being as capable as it was once advertised, and that's why they brought out the whole Motion Plus effects.
Yeah.
I never used the Motion Plus effects. I've made my opinions on the Wii very clear. It's neat, but it's a gimmick system through and through.
So my first games with the Wii were Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, I think.
Okay.
Is what it's called, and it's a rail shooter.
Is that the only Resident Evil game you've played?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, and it's an on-rail shooter, and it is exactly what you would expect. And it was also, too, around the time of, I think the last Resident Evil game that came out was Zero, so it was all about, like, the leeches and stuff like that. It's like, I have no idea what's going on in this plot, but okay.
Right.
And then the other game that I had played, and I really wish that I picked it up for the DS, we'll get there, but I think it's called Trauma Center, and it's a game by Atlas, so probably expensive now. And it's basically like you're doing surgery. Basically take the game Operation and then make it anime as fuck.
So Operation really by Atlas.
Pretty much. But it's cool. Like, you have to, like, take your scalpel and you do your incisions and all that stuff, and then you peel back with the calipers, pin it down. Like, it was actually, like, really in depth, and it's like, at the same time, like, oh my god, doctor, this patient's gonna die in, like, 5 minutes from this, like, super virus that will explode. So, it finds its way to make it a video game as well. But I kind of wish, because they came out with one for DS, and it's definitely the kind of game that would have benefited from touch controls, which, on that note, just touch controls as a whole, like, I know they're super conventional now, especially with mobile gaming being primarily touch controls, but when they were first kind of making the rounds in gaming, man, the games that really use it, it's so much fun.
Yeah. So with touch controls, for consoles anyways, you would say probably the DS, eh?
The DS is just, when it found a way to do, because there was a lot of games that just tried to shoehorn them in, obviously. We've already expressed our frustration with
Castlevania.
Aria of Sorrow.
Dawn of Sorrow.
Yes, that's right. Dawn of Sorrow is the DS one because it says DS.
Yes. Oh
But
shit! Is that what they? Oh, is that why they named
funny.
it that?
That's not actually the only time they did that as well, because there's the Castlevania that was available for the Xbox 360 arcade called Harmony of Dissonance.
How does that? What am I missing there?
HD.
Uh,
That's when every game was coming out with HD attached to it somehow, even if it wasn't in high def.
they couldn't just keep the tradition of like Castlevania 64.
Nope.
Castlevania 360.
Castlevania Arcade, but even though there's probably Castlevania Arcade. Anywho, but yeah, like stuff like when I think of games that use the touch controls well, I think of stuff like Elite Beat Agents. And rhythm games are just all suited for wacky controls.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
With that said, I mean, like, can't forget about mobile games.
nope.
I'd like to, but
I would like to, but I mean, I can admit, like, Angry Birds was fun.
Oh, it was great. Same with
know?
there was a puzzle game, I forget what it was, but you had like a jetpack and you had to try and make it somewhere. It was a very early one. I can see the image in my head too.
I was a sucker for like catapult games.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's essentially what Angry Birds
it's
is.
Angry Birds, but like medieval. It's different somehow. There's one game that I got into very early on when like the iPhone store was just becoming, or the Apple store was becoming big, and it was like a jousting game. Um, I remember like the graphics were impressive for the time. The gameplay was super shallow. It made me wait for a long time, and it made my phone get really, really hot.
I can't say much because the first time that I actually beat Final Fantasy 1 was on my iPod Touch. But I beat it on a phone.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Hey, you know what? It got you to experience Final Fantasy 1. It's not like you hadn't played it before.
I've played it before, yeah, on the NES, but never finished it, right? So
Now, it's hard to say that like wacky peripherals are going. There's still the odd one that come out. I think Nintendo is still really just the champions of wacky peripherals.
yeah, and they
Um,
shouldn't lean on
well,
it though.
they shouldn't lean on it. No, I like how they're playing it safe these days. But then you still have obviously like there was the entire line of Labo. There's
Fuck Labo.
I know, right? It's pretty easy to forget Labo.
Cardboard is the accessory.
But like there was quite a bit of Labo.
Yeah.
Then you've got Mario Kart Live, which is something that like I have thought about getting, but it's one of those things like I'll set it up, I'll play it once, and I won't really ever play it again. Also, I have dogs, as our listeners know. So,
but I mean that's just like having live thwomps in the course.
They will kill Mario at all costs. Yeah. But then you have things like Ring Fit Adventure, which it's not heavy on the peripheral, but at the same time, like you strap a Joy-Con, just the Joy-Cons in general, I guess.
Yeah, no,
There's things that use them anyway.
Ring Fit Adventure actually kind of appeals to me, but then it's like I don't like cardio.
It's one of those things where I've seen it, and I've seen it on sale a couple times, and I'm like, I'd be down to pick this up, like a fitness RPG. That seems neat, just in general.
It's a Tamagotchi, but the Tamagotchi's you.
Oh, funny that you mentioned that, actually. I somehow haven't brought this up on the podcast, but something I actually got like a month or two ago. It is I got, for those who know the series Digimon, there's a Digivice. It's basically like the staple item. And what this thing is, they used to be like Tamagotchis for the most part. This is a pedometer / RPG. And yeah, it's just, you just clip it onto your belt when you turn it on, and it counts your steps, and you get to like different chapters, and then it's like you'll get into a battle, like mash the buttons or shake it around, or like do like a Simon Says game. And it's hard to consider it a game, but at the same time, like I will. It's very neat.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you can gamify so many different things.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So that's a charming little gaming thing that I've been doing. But
circling back around to Rock Band. And I mean, there's DJ Hero too, which came with with these weird turntables.
DJ Hero killed the Hero franchise.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think also the overabundance of Guitar Hero versions. Because
It was a culmination
they
of
they
things.
came out with one, then they came out with two, and two did really good. That's where its notoriety really picked up. And then they
Yep.
came out with three. Three was a good time. And
Then
then they
Rock
just
Band
started
hit the
doing
scene.
Guitar Hero Beatles version, Guitar Hero Aerosmith, Guitar Hero Green Day, Guitar Hero this, that, the other thing. It's like,
That's
okay.
enough. That's enough. It's funny because these were just like glorified DLC releases. Like they had a lot of content in them. Don't get me wrong,
Oh, sure.
but when I play Guitar Hero, I liked it for the variety of music. So
Yeah.
you're definitely narrowing your market when you just have one band. And don't get me wrong, like I like Aerosmith, I really do, but I don't want the Aerosmith game. Which, fun fact, not the only Aerosmith game.
Yeah, it's not.
Did you know that that Aerosmith is in a Super Nintendo game?
No.
No, I think it's called the X Factor, and it is a first-person shooter on the Super Nintendo.
I'm looking this up now. I'm holding you accountable.
I'm also doing the same.
Um
Nope, nope, that's not it.
I mean, there's SingStar and Popstar and all those too, right? Microphones. We touched on it briefly, but
Ah, I found it. I found it. Okay, it's called Revolution X.
Revolution X.
Yeah, yeah, and it's based on an arcade game, but yeah, it's a shooting game with Aerosmith in it.
All right.
Yep.
I was suspecting like you may have had it mixed up with Kiss,
No,
because Kiss has been
no.
in a few games, have they not?
Honestly, I would believe it.
Or is it? Am I thinking of something else? Maybe.
Kiss saves Santa. Oh dear. Then there was also Guitar Hero on the DS, the on tour games,
oh!
which
I shouldn't have looked this up.
oh,
Looked up
did you
Kiss
find the
video
Flash
games and it's
controller?
coming up Kiss adult story games. We are
Yep.
getting into porn rated stuff.
Welcome to the Switch eShop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh dear. I
oh
don't even
dear.
want to think
Let's not talk
that
about
being in the
wacky
world of
unconventional
peripherals.
controllers for any of those hentai games. We're entering
Um,
other territories there.
so what do you think is one of the weirdest peripherals that are required for a certain game?
Um, honestly, I'm going just the Wii in general.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
with the nunchuck and Wiimote. I'm just going back to those days. Like Red Steel, it made sense. But then like
There is.
the other game I had, Splinter Cell Double Agent,
Yep.
it was weird. Doing a stealth
Yep.
game that's third person and you're using a Wiimote and stuff.
Although it is funny because not that I've ever done so, but I've heard nothing but great things about playing COD on Wii.
Really?
Yeah, apparently it's actually some of the best shooting in a shooting
Okay,
game for
but
its era.
in all fairness, like third person versus first person with a Wiimote, I can kind of get behind.
Yeah.
So, and I've played Metroid Prime 1 on Wii for a little bit, and I could get behind it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think
No,
that's where I
I would
started playing number 2.
I would say the weirdest peripheral that I can think of is, and I believe it's for the PSP of all things. Um, and it's a camera to pick up cards because it was this weird, like, you'd put cards down on the table and it would use augmented reality to pick them up and bring them to life in this weird card battler game.
Okay, there was one for PlayStation 3 that did that.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I forget what it was. But yeah, that was actually kind of neat.
It's a really cool concept, and the only other way that I've seen it done was with the 3DS.
Right, because they
Because,
did augmented reality stuff too, right?
Yeah, every 3DS would come with a pack of like AR cards, and there's one that looks like a little Mario question block, and it actually has like mini games and stuff. So the ones that I remember, there was like a shoot the targets one. So like you put it on a table and you can actually like walk around it, and it's like a full 3D model and stuff. I think there was like almost like a golf-esque one. Uh, it did a bunch of neat things, but the cool thing about that is back in the days of Club Nintendo, there was when you could redeem stuff for points. One of them was a giant version of the question mark AR card, and I
Okay.
got one, and it functions.
Neat.
Yeah, so like you put it on the floor, and this thing that was like, tabletop size now takes up like a good chunk of the living room. And the best part is the other side is the AR card with Mario. So you can just take pictures with Mario.
Neat.
Yeah. Just hanging out on the living room floor.
And bad resolution.
Oh, terrible resolution.
The Eye of Judgment for
That
PlayStation
would
3. That's the so it had like a camera. It was essentially the same as the iToy, but it was the PlayStation 3 version, just called PlayStation Eye. And it had like a special stand for it that you put, and you'd had a mat, and you put down cards, and it would pop up on the screen.
See, that's so cool.
It's
The
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I was just gonna say the inner Yu-Gi-Oh fan in me loves that.
Yeah, I know my brother brought it over one time, and I saw it. It was pretty neat.
I would be interested to check that out. Also, because we mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh, and I am hyped for the upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh collection. Now I can sneak Yu-Gi-Oh music into this episode.
Ha!
Haha.
Till Konami takes it down.
Till Konami takes it all. Oh. But yeah, I can't think of anything to like outside of the, obviously like wacky. Wait, we haven't even talked about the Connect.
No, or the iToy.
Yeah, or the i. It's funny because the iToy is so much shittier, but I think the iToy is so much cooler than the Connect.
Which, I mean, it would be cool if the Connect actually worked well.
Well, I think that's a part of it, but another thing is not that the Connect couldn't do this, but the iToy's whole gimmick was it was literally just a webcam and your motion triggered the stuff. Like I'm not saying the Connect was different, but all of the iToy games, their whole like gimmick was putting you in the game, and for its time, God, it's such a novel concept for a kid to be like, I'm in the TV.
This is true. I mean, it would have been really neat if it worked well.
Yeah, I know it's laggy as all hell.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried it a few times, the Connect, and it's never worked well for me.
The Connect is... I honestly can't even think of any Connect games I've played. I'm sure I've used a Connect and have been like, okay.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Same idea as the Wii. It's a gimmick, and it seems like a really neat gimmick until you start using it, and then it's like, what's the expandability, and how much fun would I actually have with it? Like, there's a reason the WAG is, or the Wii is like the waggle controls.
Yeah. No, at least with the Wii, though, it was multifunctional in the sense that there were games that I didn't have to do that.
Yep.
Which is primarily what I did with my Wii.
I still haven't played Mario Galaxy because even with the version ported to the Switch, it's still motion controls, and it bothers me.
That's like how I haven't played Zelda Twilight Princess. I really want to, but I have it for Wii. So
right?
Fuck. I don't want to play it that way.
Oh, you know what's a wacky controller that we didn't even talk about?
That
the slime controller from Dragon Quest.
Oh yeah. A charming little thing. Looks very uncomfortable.
It does. And it's like for anyone who doesn't know what one of the slimes from Dragon Quest is, the best thing I could think about is think of a Hershey's Kiss as a controller.
Actually, yeah, that is pretty accurate to its shape. You ever like the really big ones that they give around Valentine's Day, which funny enough is when this episode is debuting, I believe.
Oh yeah, pretty much.
If not the day after. And yeah, you just put one of those upside down and then put all the buttons on the flat part.
Yeah.
And that is the slime controller.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the name of it. I'm trying to find it right now. It was a PlayStation controller. But I think I found a picture of it. No. It's essentially like a PlayStation controller. Looks similar to a PlayStation controller. Speaking of the original design for the the PlayStation 3 controller, the boomerang.
Yes.
Oh god, what is this controller called? But it looks like a PlayStation controller, just its L1 and L2 are on the front. But then on the left side, where you generally have L1 and L2, it's a giant ball.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna
Oh,
bother me.
no, but I do know
We do
what you are
research for our
referring to.
commercials or for our episodes, people. Trust me.
No, we're past that. We're professionals.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how there was the ones that was like it was just the standard PS2 controller, but like you could like turn it and like it's split in the middle, and that was like for your acceleration in racing games.
Yep. Well, they
It
they
just
had
seems
the Ultra
uncomfortable.
Racer, which was
Yep.
like a dial. It was like a one-handed dial, or one-handed like remote control. Think of like a Wiimote with a dial on the front.
I think what they were actually going for was like an RC car controller.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what they were going for. Which I mean, I can get behind. It just didn't execute properly.
No, no, not when you're trying to play medieval with it.
No, there's
It just keeps spinning around.
the Namco. I think you were just talking about this. The Namco controller that you can turn either side.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah,
has a wheel in the middle that you can turn left, right.
I think it was specifically released for like Ridge Racer or something like that.
Probably.
Yeah.
God, I want to find out this ball one because if anyone's interested, I want them to be able to see this monstrosity.
Yeah, I can't think of any other like weird controllers that I've ever had. Like outside of like I've had some wacky things like a wireless controller for the NES, but
Yeah.
that's just you're getting more into like your third party schlock,
Yeah.
like the Mad Cat stuff with that, right? Though I will say the most recent peripheral that crossed my mind, and I still might get it, is there's a fishing game for the Switch.
Oh,
And
there's a bunch of like fishing controllers too, and that's another thing
yeah,
that the Wii had is like you could put the Wiimote in like an idea of like a fishing rod or a gun or things like
or a
that too,
kid.
right? Or a kid. Yep.
Yeah, don't shake the baby.
The Sphere 360 controller. That's what it was
Oh,
called.
oh no.
Yeah. Look this thing up. It's wacky. It looks like a PlayStation controller had a tumor.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
one for the GameCube that we didn't even talk about, and it's kind of like one of the more well-known controllers that are wacky. It's one with the full keyboard.
so do you know why the full keyboard GameCube controller exists? Because it's mostly for one game
It
specifically.
was for Phantasy Star Online, was it not?
Yep.
Thought so.
Yep. Which is so wild to think that they're like, we're making this game for the GameCube. It would be much better suited for the PC because it's an MMO, like one of the first MMOs. And we want people to communicate, so we'll just cram a keyboard between a GameCube controller.
I mean,
And
it works.
actually, it doesn't look that bad.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
It's not like having
as-
a sphere on top of a PlayStation controller.
Well, it's not like they cut a GameCube controller in half and then just put the halves at the end of a 2x4.
Yeah. No, they cut the
Yeah.
PlayStation controller in half and put a screen in between it.
You know what's I've been looking at it and I'm like, I don't know why I would want this.
But you do, don't you?
I don't know yet. I haven't found out if it can like stream disc games because I'm pretty sure that's all it does. It just streams from your PS5.
From my understanding, they can stream from the service now as well. But we can talk about that off air.
I could play Tokyo Jungle on the go, but then I have that predicament where I don't want to give them my money to play Tokyo Jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got any other wacky controls?
No,
Because
no,
there is one I
think
kind of want to finish on.
All right, what do you got?
But
then? Well,
if you got nothing
hold
else,
on. Okay, the last thing I will mention is just gimmicky gaming chairs. And I'm not talking about like your actual like your Titan chair or Racer X or whatever they are. I'm talking about okay, I'm gonna bring it up specifically because I sent it to you. But the Video Gear Command Center,
Yes.
which is basically like, if this is for the Canadians out there, it's like a GT snow racer, but it's just for your living room, and you can put your snacks in it and rock back and forth while you play your NES games.
Yeah. It has so
Yeah,
many features, and I'm kind of scared because I think it like has vibration stuff in it too, and
yeah, and then I think about, like, you see a lot of them today, like, places like Walmart. They'll be like the kid shaped little chair, like they're just little L shaped chairs, and but they'll have like speakers and like a cup
yeah.
holder and stuff like that. There's not really gaming accessories, but they are very heavily and cheesily marketed to be like, have the ultimate gaming
The
experience.
ultimate thing.
Yeah. So, but no, what do you got to close us out on?
Okay, so there's actually two that I want to bring up. Uh,
Okay.
One was the skateboard for Tony Hawk Ride.
Right. Surprised that didn't come up.
Right?
Maybe because neither of us used it, but
No.
if I'm not mistaken, they put so much work into this thing, and it just did not function.
And it didn't sell that well.
No.
It would have been really cool, I think. But again,
Well,
it comes down to the gimmick. It stayed a gimmick.
it is interesting that, like, it had the motion sensors on the side, so you had to, like, to drag your foot along it as if you were actually, like, getting momentum while skating. But no. No.
And the last thing I want to bring up is actually a boxing game. And
Oh,
it was
yep.
released by Konami, called Exciting Boxing. And it came with, or it had an accessory for it. That was essentially a giant blow up doll on a stand
It's a boxing dummy.
that you punch.
Yeah.
And that was the game.
Honestly, I think that's pretty cool.
It is kind of cool.
If
Unless it
if it's
pops.
anything like, well, yeah. But if it's anything like the old, like, the you hit the peg with the mallet to, like, ring the bell. If it's anything like that, I mean, you'd use it once and then you'd put it away.
Yep.
But it is neat that it. How did what? I'm surprised we didn't actually mention this episode. I know we've talked about him before, but Rob,
Rob, yeah.
he's like the original one. Well, okay, no, he doesn't predate the wood.
No, he doesn't predate the wood. Yeah, Rob the robot. Neat idea. Like, this is going back to the age of when, like, the video game crash was apparent, especially with Atari letting everything through. Nintendo wanted to make a name for themselves, and because the video game crashed, they didn't know quite how to advertise it. So they came up with this little robot and advertised it like, for one, they changed the design so it didn't look like a video game console from the Famicom. And they also packaged it with a robot that could play certain games called Rob the Robot. So it was more in line with a toy instead of video games. Did I get that right?
Well, I mean, it was marketed as a toy because toys weren't malicious.
Right. Where video games is just kind of like whatever.
I just had to think and look it up now, and apparently, I haven't confirmed that this is a real thing, but if it is, it's hilarious. But I think it's just branding on a controller, a Nerf controller.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh.
Oh my god, no, it's actually real, and it's a Switch controller. That's hilarious.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so the front, I believe, is just like plastic, your standard front shell. This is, I believe it's also a Hori controller, but like the back plating of it is just squishy Nerf.
That's funny.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I mean, there's also a TV tuner for the Game Gear. Not game related, but it's still an accessory.
And the radio.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all I got.
I think we're pretty well.
Realistically, like,
we
scratched the surface on what this topic actually could be, because there's so many weird shit out there. There's so many accessories. There's so many. Oh God.
Wasn't there a canceled thing, and it was like a Game Boy accessory with specific games that if you made progress, it pumped you with insulin?
Something like that, yeah.
There's the sewing machine. There's
Yeah, the
a
sewing machine with
bicycle.
the original Game Boy, right?
Yep. So,
Yeah.
but
There's so
I don't know.
many accessories that you could get, and like we probably only touched about like not even 10%.
Yeah. I don't know. Just weird ways to play games. I'm more partial to just regular button and controller setup. But hey, if you
I
want
mean,
to
there was a
try
pocket
something
sonar for
weird,
Game Boy Color, Game Boy Light.
which not unlike the Game Boy camera was probably like the best sonar available on the market at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
But no, I think I'm pretty well good on this one. We could probably close it out.
all right. What's your favorite?
Ooh, if we're talking about something that I actually think is genuinely neat, it's probably a toss up between like the chainsaw or
The
the
slime.
power glove.
Oh, the Power Glove.
The slime is very charming, but you know what? I don't think anything's gonna outrank. Wait a minute, the Atari stick. Oh, 1983. Never mind. Okay, yeah, 2x4.
2x4.
Yep. Yeah, the stick station.
Uh,
What about you?
honestly, the inflatable boxing controller seems kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
an interesting one.
not to be malicious, but I could put people's faces on it and then
Yeah,
beat games that way.
yeah, yeah. That is very true. Making progress with therapy?
Yeah, question mark.
Question mark. Yeah.
Oh dear. If not that, I would go with the slime. Not for
Yeah.
usability, but just for like enjoyability. Because it's such an
Yeah.
iconic character from like I don't know Dragon Quest series that much, but being a video game fan, I know that enemy is just so notable.
For some reason, I thought something came out that it wasn't, but no, it doesn't exist. My mind made it up.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought there was the same kind of thing, but with a rabbite.
Oh, that would be cool.
Oh my, who am I kidding? Mana doesn't get that much love.
No, it does not.
No, but
But aside from that, don't forget your peripheral of a joystick and a 2x4.
and thank you for attending this year's Bossy's celebration, everybody.
Yes, we can still technically call it annual, but next year will be better. We will be on top of it. I say that every year, so don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
With that said, that's been
right.
episode 54. Holy shit. If you've been listening since the beginning, I mean, good for you for sticking through. I hope you've been enjoying it. Hope this episode was good for you guys. Tell your friends, tell your family. We're on Blue Sky social media. X or Twitter or whatever you call it is just a cesspool nowadays. So take that for what you will. We aren't generally on there. We are bad at social media anyways, so.
That we are.
So with that said, guys, we will see you next time.
Bye!